Imagine if the ability to turn life's toughest challenges into moments of profound growth was discovered over 2,000 years ago. What if you could face adversity with a sense of inner peace so deep that nothing could shake your tranquility? This idea is rooted in the wisdom of the Buddha, who once said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." These words reveal a truth that is both simple and powerful. Your thoughts have the ability to shape your reality. If that is true, then what if you could train your mind to see every hardship not as a setback, but as an opportunity for transformation? The way we perceive obstacles shapes our experience of them. If we see them as negative, they will feel heavy and overwhelming. But if we train ourselves to view them as opportunities for growth, they become powerful tools that can lead us to wisdom and strength. Of course, this shift in perspective is not easy. When we are in the middle of a difficult situation, it can be hard to see anything positive about it. However, with patience and mindfulness, we can learn to embrace life's challenges with an open heart. Buddhism acknowledges that life is filled with struggles. This is an unavoidable truth, but what we can control is how we respond to these struggles. Instead of allowing them to break us, we can choose to let them teach us. This does not mean that pain and suffering will disappear, but it does mean that they can serve a purpose. Every challenge carries a hidden lesson waiting to be uncovered. A personal loss might teach us the impermanence of life, reminding us to cherish the moments we have. A difficult relationship might teach us patience, empathy, or the importance of setting healthy boundaries. Financial struggles could reveal lessons about gratitude, resourcefulness, and the true value of what we have. These lessons, though difficult, are essential for personal and spiritual growth. The ability to transform struggles into wisdom is known as resilience, the power to recover from adversity and emerge stronger. It is one of the most valuable traits a person can develop, and Buddhism offers many tools to cultivate it. One of these tools is mindfulness, the practice of being fully present in the moment. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. This awareness helps us respond to challenges in a thoughtful way, rather than reacting with fear or frustration. For example, imagine facing a stressful situation at work or in your personal life. Instead of immediately reacting with anger or anxiety, you take a deep breath, step back, and observe what is happening. This brief pause allows you to respond with clarity rather than being swept away by negative emotions. It is a small but powerful shift, one that can completely change how you experience and handle difficult situations. Buddhism teaches that shifting our mindset toward challenges requires patience and consistent practice. It is not something that happens overnight, but with time, we can train ourselves to see life's difficulties through a new lens. Through mindfulness, self-awareness, and a willingness to learn, we can cultivate the ability to face hardships with strength and wisdom. When we begin to see struggles as stepping stones instead of stumbling blocks, we undergo a profound transformation. Instead of feeling weighed down by obstacles, we learn to rise above them. Each challenge we conquer makes us stronger, wiser, and more capable of handling the complexities of life. Through this perspective, we begin to navigate life's storms with a deep sense of peace, knowing that every difficulty holds the potential to bring us closer to our true selves. The path of growth is not an easy one, but it is a path worth walking. By embracing life's challenges rather than resisting them, we take the first step toward a more enlightened way of living. The mind is like a vast ocean. When the surface is disturbed by waves of worry, anger, or fear, it becomes chaotic. But deep below, the water remains still and undisturbed. Buddhism teaches that by training the mind, we can cultivate this inner stillness, allowing us to navigate life's storms without being overwhelmed. One of the most profound ways to achieve this is by living fully in the present moment. In today's world, distractions are everywhere. Our minds are constantly pulled in different directions, worrying about the future, dwelling on the past, or lost in endless thoughts. It is easy to get trapped in this mental chatter, feeling restless and anxious. But Buddhism teaches that true peace can only be found in the present moment, and the key to accessing it is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully aware of the present, engaging with life as it unfolds, rather than being consumed by what was or what could be. It is about experiencing each moment with clarity without being caught in the illusions of the mind. Whether we are walking, eating, working, or even just breathing, mindfulness invites us to be present in everything we do. Think about how often we do things on autopilot. We eat without truly tasting our food, we listen without really hearing, and we move through life without fully experiencing it. But when we bring mindfulness into our daily activities, everything changes. A simple meal becomes a moment of appreciation, a conversation becomes deeper, and a walk in nature becomes a source of peace and renewal. However, living in the present is not easy. Our minds naturally drift toward worries about the future or regrets about the past. We replay old conversations, stress over what might happen next, or become lost in thoughts that have nothing to do with what is actually happening around us. This mental wandering creates suffering, keeping us disconnected from life itself. Buddhism teaches that this cycle of worry and regret can be broken through mindfulness. By consciously bringing our attention back to the present, we free ourselves from the burdens of the past and the anxieties of the future. It does not mean we ignore our responsibilities or stop planning for the future. It simply means we do not let these thoughts control us. We learn to handle what is within our power while letting go of what is beyond our control. One of the simplest and most powerful ways to practice mindfulness is through breathing. The breath is always present, always with us, yet we rarely pay attention to it. By focusing on each inhale and exhale, we anchor ourselves in the moment. This practice can be especially helpful when emotions arise. If you feel overwhelmed, anxious, or angry, take a deep breath, focus on it, and allow yourself to return to a state of balance. Another way to cultivate mindfulness is by fully engaging in whatever you are doing. If you are eating, taste each bite. If you are listening, truly hear the words being spoken. If you are walking, notice the sensation of your feet touching the ground. These small moments of awareness build the foundation for a more mindful life, allowing us to experience everything more deeply. Mindfulness not only enhances our personal well-being, but also transforms our relationships. When we are present, we become better listeners, more understanding, and more compassionate. We stop reacting impulsively and start responding with wisdom. This simple shift can strengthen connections with others, improving the quality of our interactions and relationships. Living in the present moment also helps us break free from unnecessary suffering. Many of our struggles come not from actual problems, but from the way our minds interpret them. A situation itself is rarely the cause of suffering. It is our attachment to certain outcomes, our resistance to change, and our fears that create distress. Mindfulness teaches us to see things as they are, rather than as we imagine them to be. For example, imagine you are stuck in traffic. The situation itself is neutral. It is neither good nor bad. But if you become frustrated, thinking about how much time you are losing, how unfair it is, or how it is ruining your plans, then suffering arises. However, if you simply acknowledge the reality of the situation, breathe deeply, and accept that this moment is beyond your control, you remain at peace. Life is unpredictable. At times, it flows smoothly, bringing moments of joy, success, and comfort. But just as often, it presents difficulties, challenges that test our patience, losses that break our hearts, and situations that push us beyond our limits. It is in these moments that our emotional resilience is truly tested. Buddhism teaches that developing emotional resilience is essential for maintaining inner peace, allowing us to navigate life's ups and downs with grace, wisdom, and strength. Emotional resilience is the ability to remain steady and composed, even in the face of adversity. It does not mean ignoring or suppressing emotions, but rather understanding them, processing them, and responding in a way that brings clarity rather than chaos. Most people react impulsively when faced with difficult emotions. They lash out in anger, drown in sadness, or allow fear to paralyze them. But Buddhism offers a different approach, one that teaches us how to observe our emotions without being controlled by them. One of the core practices that help build emotional resilience is mindfulness. When we are mindful, we become aware of our thoughts and emotions as they arise. Instead of reacting immediately, we take a step back, breathe, and observe what is happening within us. This moment of awareness creates space to choose our response rather than acting out of habit or impulse. Imagine you are in a heated argument. Your emotions flare up and anger begins to cloud your judgment. If you react without awareness, you might say something hurtful, something you later regret. But if you pause, take a deep breath, and observe your anger, you gain control over it, instead of letting it control you. You might recognize that your anger is temporary, that the argument is not as important as it feels in the moment, and that responding calmly will lead to a better outcome. Buddhism teaches that emotions, like waves, rise and fall. No emotion lasts forever. Joy fades, sadness passes, and even the most intense anger eventually subsides. When we understand this, we stop identifying so closely with our emotions. Instead of saying, "I am angry," we recognize, "I am experiencing anger." This shift in perspective allows us to detach from emotional turmoil, making it easier to maintain balance. For example, if a relationship ends, the pain is real, but suffering arises when we refuse to let go, when we cling to what was instead of embracing what is. Similarly, if we lose a job, we might feel anxious and uncertain, but we cause ourselves unnecessary distress when we dwell on what could have been instead of focusing on new possibilities. Emotional resilience also involves developing equanimity, a state of inner stability that remains unshaken by external circumstances. A person with equanimity does not get overly excited in moments of success or overly discouraged in moments of failure. They understand that both are temporary and that true peace comes from within, not from external achievements. This does not mean that we should become indifferent to life. On the contrary, equanimity allows us to engage fully with the world while maintaining balance. It allows us to experience joy without becoming overly attached to it, and to endure pain without being consumed by it. Building emotional resilience takes time and practice. It requires daily mindfulness, self-reflection, and the willingness to let go of limiting beliefs. But the rewards are profound. When we master our emotions, we gain freedom. No longer controlled by fear, anger, or sadness, we move through life with a sense of peace and confidence. Imagine being able to face any challenge without losing your inner balance. Imagine being able to feel emotions deeply without being overwhelmed by them. This is the power of emotional resilience. It transforms suffering into wisdom, chaos into clarity, and fear into strength. Through mindfulness, self-awareness, and the practice of equanimity, we can develop the mental and emotional strength to handle whatever life brings. And as we cultivate this resilience, We become like the ocean, calm, steady, and vast, able to withstand any storm. Discipline is often misunderstood. Many associate it with restriction, rules, and the suppression of desires. However, in Buddhism, self-discipline is seen as a path to true freedom. It is not about limiting life's joys, but about gaining mastery over the mind, emotions, and actions. When we develop self-discipline, we take control of our thoughts and behaviors, ensuring that they align with our values rather than being dictated by fleeting impulses or external influences. Imagine a river without banks. It would overflow, losing direction and becoming chaotic. But with structure, the river flows smoothly, with power and purpose. The same applies to life. Without self-discipline, our energy is scattered, our minds are restless, and we drift through life without direction. However, when we cultivate discipline, we harness our energy, focus our intentions, and move with clarity toward our goals. One of the key teachings of Buddhism is the practice of right effort, which means applying consistent energy toward personal growth and wisdom. It teaches us to recognize when we are engaging in thoughts and behaviors that lead to suffering, and to redirect our focus toward what brings inner peace and fulfillment. Self-discipline is what allows us to make these conscious choices rather than acting on autopilot. Consider meditation. At first, it may feel difficult to sit still, to quiet the mind, to focus on the breath. But through discipline, by showing up each day, even when it is challenging, we begin to experience its benefits. The mind becomes clearer, emotions become more balanced, and we develop an unshakable inner calm. Without discipline, it is easy to make excuses, to procrastinate, or to let distractions take over. But discipline is what turns intention into action, transforming knowledge into experience. To overcome procrastination, one must break tasks into smaller, manageable steps. When we look at a big goal, it can feel overwhelming. But when we focus on the next small step, progress becomes achievable. The discipline to take consistent action, no matter how small, leads to transformation over time. Resisting distractions also requires setting clear intentions, creating a dedicated space for mindfulness, limiting time on unnecessary activities, and being intentional about how we use our energy can help strengthen discipline. By making conscious choices about where we direct our focus, we regain control over our lives. However, self-discipline is not just about external habits. It is also about the mind. It involves training ourselves to cultivate positive thoughts and release negative patterns. The mind, if left undisciplined, will wander toward worries, fears, and desires. But when trained, it becomes a powerful tool for wisdom and peace. This is where mental discipline comes into play. Buddhism teaches that by watching our thoughts, we can recognize when we are engaging in harmful patterns. Instead of indulging in negative self-talk, fears, or resentment, we can choose to shift our focus toward gratitude, mindfulness, and constructive thoughts. This shift does not happen overnight, but through consistent practice, we rewire the mind, making peace and clarity our natural state. The ultimate goal of self-discipline in Buddhism is not to create a life of restriction, but to create a life of liberation. When we discipline the mind and body, we free ourselves from suffering caused by impulsive desires, restlessness, and mental chaos. We no longer live at the mercy of external circumstances, but take control of how we respond to life. Discipline also strengthens resilience. Life will always present difficulties, but a disciplined mind does not crumble under pressure. It remains steady, able to withstand challenges with grace. Whether it is facing failure, setbacks, or loss, discipline ensures that we do not lose ourselves in despair. Instead, we learn from experiences, adapt, and continue forward with wisdom. Buddhism teaches that self-discipline is not about denying ourselves joy, but about creating deeper, lasting fulfillment. By committing to practices that cultivate mindfulness, wisdom, and clarity, we step into a life that is not only successful on the outside, but deeply satisfying on the inside. With each act of discipline, whether it is choosing to meditate, managing our emotions, or resisting distractions, we strengthen the foundation of a life well lived, and in doing so, we move closer to a state of true liberation, where peace, clarity, and wisdom guide every step we take. One of the greatest sources of suffering in life is the constant concern about what others think. We live in a world where opinions are everywhere. Family, friends, colleagues, social media, and society at large all seem to have expectations for how we should live. The fear of judgment often shapes our decisions, limits our self-expression, and prevents us from living authentically. But Buddhism teaches that true freedom comes when we let go of this attachment to external validation and learn to find confidence within ourselves. When we rely on others' opinions to determine our self-worth, we become like leaves in the wind, easily swayed in different directions. One moment we feel confident because someone praises us. The next, we feel insecure because someone criticizes us. Our emotions rise and fall based on external validation, leaving us in a constant state of uncertainty. But Buddhism teaches that our worth does not depend on what others think. It comes from within, from knowing who we truly are. No external opinion can change our intrinsic value. When we realize this, we stop seeking validation from outside sources and begin to cultivate inner confidence. The practice of mindfulness plays a crucial role in letting go of the fear of judgment. When we are mindful, we observe our thoughts and reactions without becoming entangled in them. We begin to notice when we are seeking approval or fearing criticism, and we can question why. Are we acting out of a genuine desire, or are we adjusting ourselves to fit into someone else's expectations? Another Buddhist teaching that helps free us from the burden of others' opinions is the understanding of impermanence. Just as everything in life changes, so do people's thoughts and judgments. Today, someone may praise you. Tomorrow, they may criticize you. Their opinions are based on their own perspectives, experiences, and emotions. Things that have nothing to do with your true self. Why allow something so fleeting to dictate your happiness? A powerful way to practice detachment from external validation is through self-inquiry. When faced with criticism, instead of reacting emotionally, take a moment to reflect. Is this feedback constructive, or simply someone's personal opinion? Does this criticism align with my values and truth? Am I seeking approval out of insecurity, or do I genuinely value this perspective? By asking these questions, we can separate useful insights from unnecessary noise. We learn to take in wisdom while discarding opinions that do not serve us. Letting go of the need for approval does not mean becoming indifferent or disregarding others' feelings. It means making choices that align with your truth rather than constantly adjusting to fit societal expectations. It is about being authentic rather than being controlled by the fear of rejection. This authenticity leads to deeper, more meaningful relationships. When you stop worrying about what others think, you attract people who appreciate you for who you truly are, not for the mask you wear. You also become a source of inspiration for others, showing them the power of self-acceptance. A major obstacle in overcoming the fear of judgment is the ego, the part of us that craves recognition and validation. The ego wants to be admired, respected, and accepted, but in clinging to these desires, we create suffering. Buddhism teaches that by loosening our attachment to the ego, we find true peace. The less we seek to prove ourselves to others, the more liberated we become. Think of the great sages, monks, and enlightened beings throughout history. They did not live for approval. They lived in alignment with truth, regardless of how others perceived them. This is the kind of freedom that Buddhism offers, a life where you are not imprisoned by others' opinions, but guided by your own inner wisdom. The journey to overcoming the fear of judgment requires patience and practice. Begin by noticing when you adjust your behavior out of fear of what others might say. Then, remind yourself that your value does not come from external approval. The more you practice, the stronger your self-confidence becomes. When you free yourself from the weight of others' opinions, life becomes lighter. You no longer waste energy trying to please everyone or avoid criticism. Instead, you walk your own path with clarity and peace. You begin to live not for recognition, but for the fulfillment of your own truth. In this freedom, you discover a profound truth. When you stop chasing approval, you gain something far greater: self-acceptance. And with self-acceptance comes a deep, unshakable peace. True strength is not about physical power or dominance over others. It is about mastering the mind, remaining calm in chaos, and navigating life's challenges with wisdom. In Buddhism, mental strength is considered one of the most valuable qualities one can develop. It is the foundation of resilience, clarity, and inner peace. When the mind is strong, no external situation can shake us. When the mind is weak, even small difficulties can overwhelm us. Mental strength is like a muscle. It must be trained, refined, and strengthened over time. Just as the body becomes weak if it is not exercised, the mind also becomes fragile if it is not disciplined. Buddhism teaches that through meditation, mindfulness, and the practice of detachment, we can cultivate an unshakable mind, one that remains steady regardless of circumstances. One of the greatest obstacles to mental strength is attachment. Attachment to people, things, ideas, and expectations. When we become too attached, we create suffering for ourselves. If we cling to an identity, we fear losing it. If we attach to a particular outcome, we suffer when things do not go as planned. But the mind that is free from attachment remains peaceful, adapting to life's changes with ease. Letting go of attachment does not mean being indifferent or uncaring. It means understanding that everything in life is impermanent. People change, situations evolve, and nothing remains the same forever. When we embrace this truth, we develop a sense of flexibility and resilience. We stop resisting change and begin to flow with life rather than against it. Imagine a tree during a storm. A rigid tree, unwilling to bend, will break under pressure, but a flexible tree sways with the wind, adapting to the force without breaking. The mind must be like this tree, strong yet adaptable, firm in its wisdom, but flexible in its approach. Meditation is one of the most effective tools for building mental strength. When we sit in stillness and observe our thoughts, we begin to see how often the mind is restless, distracted, or overwhelmed by emotions. Through consistent practice, we learn to detach from these thoughts, realizing that we are not our emotions. We are the observer behind them. This realization is powerful because it gives us control over how we respond to life. Mindfulness also plays a key role in strengthening the mind. When we practice mindfulness, we become aware of the present moment, rather than getting lost in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. A strong mind is one that is not burdened by unnecessary worries, but is focused on the here and now. This does not mean that we suppress emotions or avoid challenges. Instead, it means that we do not let them control us. We experience joy without clinging to it, and we endure hardships without being destroyed by them. This mindset allows us to live with freedom, peace, and true confidence. Mental strength also requires the courage to face discomfort. Growth often comes from stepping outside of our comfort zone, from facing fears rather than avoiding them. A weak mind seeks comfort at all costs, avoiding challenges and choosing the easy path. But a strong mind embraces difficulty, knowing that it is through hardship that true growth occurs. The greatest test of mental strength is how we handle suffering. Life is unpredictable. Loss, failure, illness, and hardships are inevitable. But the difference between those who suffer endlessly and those who find peace lies in their mindset. The strong mind accepts suffering as a natural part of life, learns from it, and moves forward. The weak mind resists suffering, dwelling on pain and creating more suffering in the process. Buddhism teaches that suffering is not caused by external events, but by our resistance to them. When we stop resisting, we free ourselves. We learn to accept things as they are, rather than wishing them to be different. This acceptance does not mean passivity. It means seeing reality clearly and responding with wisdom rather than reaction. Ultimately, mental strength leads to true freedom, the freedom to live without fear, to love without attachment, and to face life's uncertainties with courage. It allows us to remain calm in chaos, to find clarity in confusion, and to cultivate joy regardless of circumstances. Building mental strength is a lifelong journey, but every step we take toward mastering the mind brings us closer to lasting peace. The goal is not to escape challenges, but to develop the strength to handle them with wisdom and grace. When we cultivate mental strength, we no longer live as victims of life's circumstances. We become the creators of our own inner world. Imagine a life where external situations no longer have power over your emotions. Imagine being able to face difficulties with unshakable calmness. Imagine walking through life with clarity, confidence, and deep inner peace. This is the power of mental strength, a gift that Buddhism offers to all who are willing to cultivate it. As we embark on this journey, we realize that true happiness does not come from changing the outside world, but from mastering the world within. And when we achieve this, we find a freedom greater than anything external success could ever provide.